let's start the video. The video is called there's one argument vegans can't debunk vegans kill animals too. By Ursling Ed. Put a marker for me and let's go. Hello YouTube, you sting.
So I was scrolling through Instagram the other day and I came across this vegan post, which made me feel mad.
Wait, I couldn't read it. Oh my god. If your pet had to be put down, would you be okay with it being done at a slaughterhouse? What does it tell about slaughterhouse? That's such a good argument. Where are you, darling? Can you reply that to that one? You fine with it?
Across this vegan post, which made me feel mad. I wanted to leave a comment to destroy the vegan, but what should I say? I decided that to come up with the ultimate argument against veganism, I would watch the one person who I can always trust to give unbiased, evidence-based arguments.
If you really
oh no, not Joe
want to
Rogan.
kill the most things, be a vegan.
Excuse me? Oh.
Want to kill the most things, be a vegan. Because
unbiased, evidence-based arguments.
if you really want to kill the most things, be a vegan. Because the farmers
What? The fuck? Are you saying? What point could possibly come of this?
who protect your beans kill everything. I kill one animal per arrow. In order to grow tofu, you have to kill every ground squirrel, every vole, every shrew, every snake, every turtle, every frog, every bird, every rabbit.
Homie, what does he think? What does he think his animals eat? Before they get shot, they just grow ear? Oh my god, is he stupid? Homie's cows live off air. So it's all the stuff we kill plus the cow. Exactly! What? Joe Regan, you can't even think. Finish thinking your argument. Cows eat too. You suck for it?
Every shrew, every snake, every turtle, every frog, every bird, every rabbit, anything that gets
Why would a rabbit die? What?
in that bean field, I'm either going to plow and dismember, which is why the crows and the seagulls follow the combines every year. And then if anything does survive my first slaughter, I'm going to come in with Monsanto and poison out of everything so you can have a tofu salad and not be responsible for any death. You.
This gotta be the most stupid shit I've ever heard. Like, oh my god. I mean, like, then I will just eat him instead. 'Cause it's just one arrow, right?
You're hard, showing off.
So that guy there was Ted Nugent, a man who in the past said that the South African apartheid wasn't cut and dry and that not all men are created equal.
That argument doesn't surprise me. Let's be fucking real.
So to be fair to Joe, Ted is clearly a moral beacon within society and the kind of guy
Moral beacon, that's such a funny thing to say. I love that. Wait, it sound good, by the way? Sound good? Compare video to me? Me to video? Video to me? I never ask. I feel stupid now for not asking. Sounds good,
that you
perfect.
definitely like to take moral advice from.
He's a good guy, you get to know him.
But to be fair, this argument is used all the time by
I've never heard that argument, not in this sense, no. I've only heard like, but plants feel too. You gotta, if plants have feelings too. That's what I heard, but not this extreme of an argument. We can hear your megaphone farts? What?
vegans, and I'm sure that many of you have had this argument used against you, and I'm sure that many of you watching have probably used this argument as well. So in today's video, we're going to go through in detail the argument that has been made by Ted and others who say that animals have been killed during crop production. So let's
Oh damn, that's gonna be an easy one, to be honest.
start off really simply and say that yes, animals do die during crop production, but does that mean that vegans are responsible for more animals dying than non-vegans? Well, to start, let's look at Ted's argument in particular, because he's talking about soy and the animals that are killed in the production of soy. Now, there's a big problem with Ted's argument, which is that, well, firstly,
Yeah, you wanna know which one? That's easy. How is soy used mostly? Do we have a picture for that? Heck, 80% of world soybean fed to livestock. Okay, then we have the answer. Everything else doesn't matter in this point, right? 80% fed to fucking livestock. Oh yeah, it's all for the vegans, guys. The vegans. All the vegans. Eat it up. Oh god, wait, I don't watch full screen, sorry.
about 75 to 80% of all the soy that is produced around the world is given
Well, I guess I didn't have to research that
to the
myself.
animal agriculture industries and used as animal feed. In fact, only around 6% is used directly for human consumption. So straight away,
Yep. How animals being killed during crop production? Like, arguing about the rabbits that could get stuck in the machines, or just generally insects, stuff like that. Insects die all the time.
if you're worried about animals being killed in the production of soy, then maybe you should stop supporting the industries that use 3/4 to 4/5 of all the soy that is produced. But Ted is not the only person who has made this argument, not even the only person on the Joe Rogan podcast who has made this argument. Chris Kresser has also used this argument before.
We go back now to this 2018 paper that I mentioned earlier that examined the impact of plant agriculture on animal deaths and found 35 to 250 mouse deaths per acre.
Yeah, mouse dying, yeah, of course, surely. Surely they won't die when you feed the stuff to, animals instead. What the fuck, Evie, that sounds awful.
Mouse
crazy.
deaths of mice. And up to 7.3 billion animals killed every year from plant agriculture, if you count birds killed by pesticides, fish deaths from fertilizer runoff, plus reptiles and amphibians poisonings from eating toxic insects from the pesticides.
What's the number?
7.3 billion animals killed every year through
in
plant
terms
agriculture.
of life.
But how did they not make the conclusion themselves that they need to, also feed the animals? What this plant-based stuff? Like, what the fuck? Thank you for making me drink, though. Appreciate it. Nom 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 nom.
There's far more life taken by plant agriculture than there is life taken by animal agriculture, even factory farming.
Shut the fuck up. Hear me out, mice protect. No, but the problem, all these arguments don't really matter. Like, none of these arguments matter, because everything that they're arguing for is included several times in their fucking cow, in their pig, in their whatever. Scab was an ass, so right, all of them are, yeah.
Oh yeah, we're not killing 7.3 billion cows.
Well, firstly, over 9.5 billion land animals are killed every single year just in the US alone. And when you factor in marine animals,
Oh my
that figure
God.
becomes 55 billion. So yes, more animals are killed for meat, dairy, and eggs than they are in the production.
Wait. Wait, that's crazy. So even with all this shit calculated in, even if we would argue that the plant-based productions wouldn't be part of the meat productions, they still kill more? That's fucking crazy disgusting. Oh my god.
Of crops. And secondly, according to data from the USDA, 77.3 million acres of land is used in the US to grow plants directly for human consumption. However, 127.4 million acres of land is used to grow plants that's used as animal feed, which means 65% more land is used growing plants for animals than for humans. And that doesn't even mention the 654 million acres of pasture and rangeland in the US, which means
How? Joe Rogan is a conservative messiah. They hold him as high in regard as MAGA and Trump. Well, Trump these nuts.
that overall animal farming uses 10 times more land than farming for plants directly for human consumption. In fact, according to the most comprehensive analysis that's ever been conducted exploring farming and the environment, 83% of all global agricultural land is used for animal farming. But let's have a look in more detail at the paper that Chris Kresser is citing. Now, for those of you who saw his debate with James Wilkes, the producer of The Game Changers, then you'll know that Chris can't read forest plots.
Do you know how to read a forest plot?
But I think it goes one step further than that. I think that Chris doesn't understand
Cute cows, I've always wanted to pet one, then don't eat them. Good step towards petting.
and the subject matter that he is talking about, because he clearly has not read the paper that he is citing. Firstly, the 7.3 billion animals that Chris cites from the paper is actually called into question by the authors of the paper themselves. In their own words,
Okay, that's interesting. I think a cow would let me hug them. Yeah, cows are like super friendly and chill. You can pet them and stuff, like they are like homies. That's why it's so fucking sad that we just end them all the time. They're so nice.
they say the estimate should be reduced. 7.3 billion is clearly too high.
Can I send you a picture and you open it? Sure, I can open it on stream even. Just send.
In fact, if you actually read the paper, the authors do a better job of dismantling the crop deaths argument. For example, they cite this.
Okay, wait, let's check out Kimmy's picture. Wait, did I copy it? Wait, maybe I should double check first before I open. Oh my god, is I open the link in browser, it just downloads it? You fucking kidding me? Why would you do that? Look at those cuties. This is so cute. Can you see it? Wait, yes you can. So fucking cute.
2004 study. The study examined the effect of wheat and corn harvesting in central Argentina. It compared the population and distribution of grass mice in free habitats, crop fields, regions bordering the fields, and the wider surrounding area. While the number of mice found in fields substantially decreased after harvest, their numbers substantially increased in the border regions. When it came to disappearances, a category that included both mouse deaths and migration out of the study area, there was no significant difference between the three habitats.
Okay, so basically what this guy is doing right now is doing the proper way of researching this and first checking if the numbers are right and stuff like that. Personally, I wouldn't even go that far with this argument. Because personally, I would just be mad that they can't think that far, that the food is also being included in the animal product in the end. Honestly, don't have much research into beef industry. Hello? No, I like... If you don't have research into beef and dairy industry, go vegan, save all the cutie animals.
The study concluded that changes in the number of field animals were the consequences of movement and not of higher mortality in crops. And if we just think about it for a moment, do we really believe that mice who have such good hearing that it's actually their main defense in avoiding predators, do we really believe that these animals are just going to sit in crop fields as huge combine harvesters get closer and closer to them, causing massive vibrations in the ground and a huge amount of noise? Do we really think that they just sit there and wait to be killed by these combine harvesters? But that's besides the point, because
Yeah, that's like ridiculous. Like, they can avoid most predators, so why would you just wait until this thing gets driven over me as a mouse, for real? Just take me out. Finish me already. I'm fucking done.
paper that Chris is citing actually does a great job of disproving the very point that he is trying to make. And the figure that he has cited from the paper is actually called into question by the authors of the paper. I mean, you just couldn't make this up. Chris Kresser is like the
Like, that's the thing, right? Like, his point is right. Like, all the points that this guy on stream is making are 100% correct, make 100% sense. But I just would never go down this path. It just doesn't make sense for me to follow down this path when you can just say, homie, what do your cows eat?
ultimate quack.
It's almost like comedy.
But where did this argument even come from? Well, back in 2003, there was an article published by someone called Stephen Davies. And Stephen Davies makes the claim that it's more ethical to eat an omnivorous diet that focuses on ruminant meat than it is to be plant-based, because more animals die in the production of plant-based foods than they do in the production of ruminant meat. However, Davies made a really significant error when he was writing this paper, because he assumes that the same amount of food will be made on the same amount of land regardless of the type of food that is being produced, and that is obviously just not true. And so Davies makes the claim that about 7.5 animals are killed per hectare when producing grass-fed beef, but
In other words, perhaps only 7.5 animals of the field per hectare would die to produce pasture forages as compared to the intensive cropping systems used to produce a vegan
15
diet.
animals are killed per hectare when producing a plant-based crop instead. So using his
I know the meat industry is horrible for animals, it's beyond inhumane. Just keep in mind, the dairy industry, milk and cheese, is equally bad in this regard, because all the cows that die, like forced impregnation, etc., is very likely, no, not very likely, happens all the time, and all the male animals get killed immediately, stuff like that. So it's in the same category kind of
estimates,
thing.
this rebuttal that uses UN data states that 1,000 kilograms of protein can be produced on 1 hectare of land that is growing plants, but would take 10 hectares of land for grass-fed beef to produce the same amount.
So it's 10 times
which
more
means that
efficient.
when you use Davies's numbers, but you factor in the error that he made, Stephen Davies actually makes an even more compelling argument to be vegan, because according to his numbers, a plant-based diet is responsible for 5 times fewer deaths than a diet that consists of ruminant meat. And plus, as a non-vegan, you're paying for animals to suffer in a whole host of really horrific ways. For example, animals are forcibly impregnated, they have their babies taken away from them, they're mutilated by having their tails chopped off, they're castrated, they're dehorned, they're disbudded, they're branded. And then once they've gone through all of those different procedures and the farmer wants to sell them to be killed, they're loaded into trucks and trailers and transported to a
Abby, don't go there.
slaughterhouse. In some countries like Australia, for example, these animals can be transported for up to 48 hours in these trucks and trailers. And then once at the slaughterhouse, the animals endure a terrifying ordeal before they're eventually killed by having their throats cut. Now, of course, when we go vegan, it's not just about reducing the number of animal deaths, it's also about reducing the overall suffering and harm that we cause to these animals. And there can be no more suffering and harm caused to an animal.
Because we love them. Like, look at those. They There's so many of them, such a small space, and look, they're so cute. That's so mean.
Harm that we cause to these animals, and there can be no more suffering and harm caused to an animal than what is caused to them in the meat, dairy, and egg industries. Not to
How the pig looked before it fell asleep in my arms. That's adorable.
mention
love
that animals
that.
killed in crop production have a chance to escape. Their deaths are indirect, but these animals that we raise specifically for their meat and their secretions, well, they have no chance of escape. They're prisoners within this system, and they can do nothing to escape from the violence that's been inflicted upon them. However, there was also another article published back in 2011 by a guy called Mike Archer. Now, this is the article that is shared around by non-vegans all
Little goats is my weak spot. Goats are so cute too, not gonna lie.
the time. This is the article that Ted is referring to when he talks about the animals being killed in the production of soy. This is the article that non-vegans hold up as a reason for them to kill the animals that they kill. To them, this is the reason why we shouldn't be vegan. So what is the article? Well, in the article,
see
the
it.
author Mike Archer makes the claim that 25 times more animals are killed in the production of wheat than they are in the production of grass-fed beef.
There's 25 times more sentient animals being killed per kilogram of usable protein. Highly doubt it, but okay, sure, let's hear the rest of the argument.
But why, you ask? Because that doesn't seem to make sense, does it, on face value? Well, Mike says that it's because every 4 years or so in Australia, there are mouse plagues. Now, mouse plagues are basically when an area of land in Australia is overrun by often millions of mice. It's a significant problem in Australia. However, it's a significant problem in Australia. You see, mouse plagues really only ever happen in Australia, and they have happened before in China, but really it's a uniquely Australian problem. Now, Mike makes the claim that because of the mouse plagues, farmers will poison as many of the mice as they possibly can, and this is why a plant-based diet is responsible for more deaths than an omnivorous diet. And just before we get in,
Yeah, okay, surely, that's the only way you can make that math, I guess. Like, just add some mouse plagues here and there, and then maybe you can
into the
calculate it
actual
this
mouse
way.
plague
Thank you
argument,
for
I
that.
think it's really important to note that this is an Australia-specific problem. So it seems really strange to me that people would use this article as a piece of evidence to not be vegan when the majority of vegans aren't even in Australia to begin with. I mean, as a vegan in the UK, why would this be a good reason for me not to be a vegan in the UK? Obviously, it's not a good argument, but so many people have shared this article thinking that it's a great piece of evidence as a reason to not be vegan anywhere in the world. And one of the people that shared this article making that claim was Stephen Crowder.
Grains like wheat,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's corn, I think we have a source, results in 25 times more sentient animals being killed per kilogram of usable protein. There's more environmental damage, there's more animal cruelty than farming red meat.
And so to me, this really just reaffirms how
That's
people
insane.
will see headlines
Oh yeah, that's insane because it's wrong. How about that? That's insane because it's wrong.
lines for articles and maybe a few summary points, and then we'll share the article around without even necessarily fully understanding what the article is saying and the arguments that are being made, which has so often been the case with this particular article from Mike Archer. So according to the USDA, it is estimated that in the years 2019 to 2020, 3.5 million tons of wheat was produced for human consumption, whilst in the same period, 6 million tons was produced to be used as animal feed. So that
Okay, 3.5 million. Wait. Human consumption of wheat is expected to remain stable around 3.5 million megatons. 6 million megatons used of livestock to eat. So about, what, plus 80%-ish? Crazy.
means that animal farmers use around 1.7 times more wheat, and so would be responsible for around 1.7 times more mice being killed for wheat production alone. Now, this is important as well because
Yes, 70%
about 80%
more
of
like
the
it.
beef that is sold in domestic supermarkets in Australia comes from cattle who spent about 85 to 90% of their life grazing on pasture, but then spent the last 10 to 15% of their life in feedlots being fattened up on grain. And on top of that, cattle flesh can still be sold as being grass-fed if the cattle spent less than 70 days being fed grain on a feedlot. And because many cattle in Australia are slaughtered
fuck?
at around 18
Okay,
months
whatever.
old, those 70 days come in that 10 to 15% time range. However, what about animals that are solely grass-fed, so at no point are fed any grain and at no point spend any time in a feedlot? Well,
Instead of saying, like, I guess it kind of is sometimes somewhere, but that can't happen a lot because we don't even have that much grass, huh?
we have this
And let's
idea, don't we, that grass-fed animals just spend their entire life grazing on pasture and the only food they consume is from the pasture that they're grazing on. However, that's not true because grass-fed animals can be fed different types of grass. For example, hay, silage, and haylage, which means that grass-fed animals are not just consuming the pasture that they're grazing on. Part of the reason for this is due to different seasonal changes, but also because a lot of pasture is nutritionally insufficient. And so that leads us on to the question of, well, how do farmers get hay and silage? They harvest it using combine harvesters, which means even grass-fed animals, solely grass-fed animals, are fed food that is harvested. So then how does this relate to the mouse plagues? I mean, do the mouse plagues only affect the crops that are used to feed vegans, or do they also affect other crops as well? Well,
No, obviously, those mouse plagues look how to. Like, basically, it's a well-known fact that mouses are all right-wing, so they of course support the right-wing politics. So they just go wherever it makes most sense to be, for the left-wings to be punished. Obviously.
check this article out that was published this year about a mouse plague that has taken place this year. In the article, one farmer said, "The hay is a worry. Apparently the mouse droppings in urine all run through. It's very damaging, it can disease cattle, it might be ruined." And in the same article, another farmer is mentioned. The Storer family grows sorghum to feed their cattle, but mice have been eating it, which has hugely hurt them financially. Now, sorghum is a type of grass that is used to make hay, and so the mouse plagues affect the entire agricultural landscape in Australia. The mouse plagues don't just target the crops that vegans consume, they target all of the different crops, including hay
Exactly.
and silage. And there is even a document by Feed Central, which is Australia's largest hay selling platform. It's called Managing a Mouse Plague in Haystacks, and it says, whatever you do, don't hold back on the number of bait stations. And on top of that, the mouse plagues even affect pasture as well. So even if you took hay and silage out of the question, pasture land, and as a consequence, grass-fed cattle are still negatively impacted by the mouse plagues. Now,
Yeah, like, please, just obviously that would be the case. It's so funny, because this guy has to kind of explain it for dummies, because he knows. He knows. He knows he has to explain it for dummies, because everyone else will already understand it.
funnily enough, Mike Archer doesn't mention any of this in his article. I wonder why. Let's think about it. Let's see, who do we think kills more animals, a vegan or a non-vegan? So on the one hand, we have a non-vegan whose diet uses more grain, uses more land, is responsible for using all of the hay and silage that is produced, and of course kills animals directly as well. And on the other hand, we have the vegan diet, which uses less land, doesn't use any hay or silage, uses less grain overall, and doesn't involve directly killing an animal.
Yeah,
Who do
it's
we
a hard
think is
thing, right?
responsible
Can you maybe
for the
put it
most
side
animal
by
death?
side?
And
Else
guess
I
what?
don't think
On
I
top
can
of all of that,
finish
Mike
calculating.
Archer misrepresents the data because he makes out that every 4 years, each area of grain production in Australia is affected by mouse plagues. However, that's not true. And you won't believe this, but this very point, the point about Mike Archer misrepresenting the data, was brought up in the study that Chris Kresser cited. I mean, honestly, at this point, you just don't know whether to laugh or cry. It's so ridiculous, but this is what the study said. A more accurate picture is suggested by the Cooperative Research Centre, which notes that each year between 100,000 and 500,000 hectares of grain crops in Australia are subject to mouse plagues. These figures suggest that in an average year, 2.3% of Australian grain cropland is hit by plague.
Oh my
When
God.
Archer's figure of 55 deaths per hectare of grain is recalculated to only apply to 2.3% of cropland, the mortality rate for grain becomes 1.27 animals
That's
per
so
hectare.
little.
So
Oh
what
my
this
God.
means is that when you use Archer's figures for animal deaths, 2.2
Look at
animals
those
are killed
cutie.
per 100 kilograms of usable grass-fed protein, but only 0.7 animals are killed for 100 kilograms of usable wheat protein. And also bear in mind that the 2.2 animal deaths for grass-fed protein doesn't include the animals killed for the harvest of hay, silage, and other feed, so that number will actually be higher as well. And so to summarize, a plant-based diet is not responsible for more deaths than a non-vegan diet. And the two main people responsible for perpetuating this myth
I'm surprised.
actually further prove the point that a plant-based diet is more ethical, because when their numbers and their estimates are used properly in accordance with the reality of the situation, their estimates themselves prove that less animals are killed in the production of a plant-based diet. And to top it all off, here is a chart showing the estimated
Number of animals killed to produce 1 million calories in 8 food categories. Oh my God, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. Oh my God. That's fucking crazy. Oh my God, what did we say earlier? Local, organic eggs? Organic eggs? Is that what Darling said earlier? Eating organic eggs? Wow. How about veggies, fruits, and grains? How does that sound? Grains being the lowest by far, by the way. Imagine fruits higher than grains. That's crazy. Even milk being relatively far up. But the thing was milk. I feel like that's a bit rigged, because it has 0 in slaughter. But we all know what happens to the animal when they can't give milk anymore, right? So that's a bit... This number on milk is kinda, well... If you know, you know. That's I count in the beef category, but that's also super low. I guess, probably. Because it's just a lot of calories, I guess, whatever.
Per 1 million calories for many of the major food items in our diets. As you can see, the difference in deaths between plant foods and animal-based foods is substantial, to say the least. And this doesn't even factor in the fact that shifting to a plant-based diet would free up to 75% of current agricultural land.
75%, by the way. We could feed the entire human race. Everyone in Africa currently living in hunger. Everyone in those poor countries that are struggling. Everyone in Southeast Asia having difficulties. Every fucking country in the world. Go eat.
Which is an area of land equivalent in size to the whole of Australia, the whole of China, the whole of the EU, and the whole of the US combined. That would be land that is freed up and could be reforested and restored. And to quote a recent report from the world-leading Chatham House, setting aside land for biodiversity to the exclusion of other uses including farming, and either protecting or restoring natural habitat would offer the most benefit to biodiversity across a given landscape. And with the rise of tech...
Yep. That's the most important
offer the
part.
most benefit to biodiversity.
The water synthetic food being created. Just go vegan. Make sure because of you people don't die in other countries because they can't eat. That helps everyone. Good old capitalism. Exactly.
Across a given landscape. And with the rise of technological advancements like vertical farming, I think it's really fitting to end with a quote from the study that Chris Kresser cited. Agriculture has taken a wide variety of forms throughout history, and current trends would seem to raise the serious possibility that plant agriculture might someday kill very few animals, perhaps even none. And so a plant-based diet is not just the most ethical diet right now, it's becoming increasingly more ethical all the time. So if you care about animals, including those who are killed during crop production, then you should be vegan, because being vegan is the best way to minimize death, not just of the animals in farms and slaughterhouses, but indeed the animals in the natural world as well. And by shifting to a plant-based diet and a vegan lifestyle, we can free up so much more of the world to allow biodiversity to flourish. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you find this video useful. I hope you can share it around to people who said these things to you before in the past. And I hope that if you're watching this as someone who has used this argument before, you now realize this argument doesn't hold up and actually just further reaffirms why it is that we should be vegan. And if you're interested in hearing my response to Joe...
Exactly. Go vegan. Be good. Help us out. Be happy. Also guys, quick shout out. This video or this reaction will be uploaded to YouTube. It's on my YouTube. I've already uploaded some other anti-capitalistic, pro-communism stuff like that you should check out. Definitely recommend it.